What should we drink to, sir?
Well, down with Hitler.
All the way down, sir.
Hello and welcome to the Movie Mouthfuls podcast, a movie podcast with zero table manners. Each episode will be tucking into movies and the odd television show to chow down on some of the most iconic cinematic cuisine scenes in cinema history, as well as just about everything else we can get our grubby little hands on. If you've listened before, you know the drill. I'm Jordan, the bloke trying to be known as the film fella online, and as always, I'm joined by the UK's #1 competitive eater of food. He eats food, alright? Fourth time now, it's food. It's the one and only Bid Meets Food!
Yeah, and what do you mean grubby little hand? My hands are perfectly clean, actually.
They are quite clean, to be fair, COVID secure and stuff, we wash
I got some hand sanitizer outside the old HQ.
How are you doing this week?
Good, I'm a little bit less full of beans than I was last week.
I've noticed.
That might be a source of happiness to you, but I haven't eaten much today, so
was last week a bit of a sugar rush, sugar coma kind of thing? You came out of it and can't remember what you said on the podcast or anything. It was just
I don't remember a great. It's just a big. I was seeing sound by the end of that thing. So I'm not sure how it went, but it felt like it was good at the time.
I think it was all right.
To say we discussed such a terrible film.
As one of our guaranteed listeners, I listened to the podcast and it sounded okay to me. So if anyone wants to let us know otherwise, then don't. So what film? What film was that clip from? What are we listening to?
It was
listening to what we're talking about this week. Even what am I talking about?
Yeah. What film we're talking about is it's Inglourious Basterds, which I did not realize is 11 years old now.
Yes, I was actually going to mention this. I was looking at the date, 2009. Is that right?
So it's 12 years old.
Yeah, 2009. It feels recent to me. Oh, not recent, but it obviously feels new. It feels like a new film, but yeah.
I mean, Tarantino movies do have a kind of a timeless quality anyway, so maybe that's a contributing factor.
Possibly. I mean, yeah, you can kind of date. I mean, this one obviously historically you can't date it, but like Pulp Fiction, for example, is kind of set in that like 90s sort of. Well, it is set in the 90s. That 90s sort of era. It is set in the 90s. What am I on about? I'm losing the plot today. But yeah, so you can date some stuff, but when he does all these historical like films that he's been doing more recently, it's they're almost timeless, aren't they? The fun fact is that obviously, or one fun fact, should I say?
I was going to say there better be more than one. I look forward to these things every week.
I was just going to say, just to lead us in, obviously our first ever episode on the show, we did Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
This is apparently his highest grossing film since Pulp Fiction. I don't know if that's been surpassed at all. This was just the information provided to me by IMDb.
I can't imagine it would have been surpassed. But the only thing I thought maybe might rival it in terms of box office appeal would be Kill Bill, but that was split into two parts. So it's hard to gauge how many people.
Well, that were before as well, so it definitely.
Oh, was it?
Didn't, but I'm just wondering if I don't think Hateful Eight did.
No, that was terrible. I hate that movie.
Yeah. I want the.
I didn't even watch all of it actually. I tuned anyway.
Django, I'm not sure, and then the other one will have been Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which again, I don't think I liked that film, but I don't think it did as well box office wise as
it was.
It
was a bit of a laboured film, but I did like just towards the end when he just gets ultra violent. Brad Pitt loses his shit and starts just beating people up.
Yeah, I mean the ending of that. I mean, again, it's revisionist history. This film is all about revisionist. Tarantino's version of revisionist history.
Yeah,
and as you mentioned, they're ultra violent. We'll get into that in a second because there is some theories about why all of Tarantino's films are the way that they are.
Yeah,
we were talking off podcast, but we'll talk on podcast about it now. Should we jump to the general chit chat stuff?
I was gonna say, well, let's just remind people we are going to talk about food. That's the reason I'm here. But yeah, let's get into it.
So yeah, general inglorious chit chat. I will call this section.
Can we, before we get started, can I ask you a question real quick? Do you know why it's that Bastards is spelled with an E in this film?
Oh, do you? Because
I was my assumption. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption was going to be that maybe as part of the marketing they can't use the word bastard spelled properly, so they have to change it to E. But that's just a guess.
Well, funnily you should say that. You love my little facts, which again, not the hardest things to find on the internet. If you just type in "Inglourious Basterds facts,"
you're doing yourself a disservice here. Come on.
One of them was when asked about the misspelled title, writer and director Quentin Tarantino gave the following answer. This is quite funny. Here's the thing. I'm never going to explain that. You do an artistic flourish like that, and to explain it will just take the piss out of it and invalidate the whole stroke in the first place.
They caught him on a bad day then. He doesn't really like the media that much, does he?
No, he's not the biggest fan of doing interviews or explaining himself at the best of times. But yeah, so no idea. Not sure at all. Maybe a marketing thing. I think there was the Inglourious Basterds that was a film in the past.
To cut to the quick, we'll never know, will we? So
no, he's never going to
anyway.
say. So, but there you go. You asked the question.
I did.
Is I guess time-honored tradition. I say this. We're only 8 episodes in. When we're 80, it'll definitely be a time-honored tradition, I guess. Do you want to explain what this film's all about?
Oh yeah, let me just for sound effects, see if I can do this. Oh,
Lovely.
Did you hear that?
Lovely.
Ooh. So Inglourious Basterds is, as the film fella rightly says, it's revisionist, right? So it paints an alternate picture of what happened during World War II, and it's essentially about a band of folks called the Inglourious Basterds, assembled by Aldo Raine. Well, I don't know if he assembled them, but he's kind of the leader, played by Brad Pitt, right?
Yep.
And essentially, it's about them going undercover, deep cover, in, well, not so much undercover, just they're dressed as civilians in Nazi-occupied France. And, they're trying to kill as many... It's kind of like a video game in that they're just trying to kill and scalp as many Nazis as possible over the course of about 3 hours. I think that was quite a good summary. Nice and concise.
Yeah, you get, well, I was going to say you're getting very good at it, but you seem to be always quite good at it. I'm the waffler.
Yeah.
You're the guy that reels me back in, stops me going off on tangents. Sometimes, then occasionally you just pop up with something like, I've got my own IMDb page as well, something like that. It's like, all right, okay. So, there is a tendency for us to both waffle, but it's a food podcast and who don't like waffles?
Yeah, you got a point. That's a good one.
So, yeah, you mentioned Brad Pitt. Is there anyone else you want to mention? You're quite, I mean, I like my actors too, but...
Do I get like a bonus for every actor? So we got Brad Pitt, quite it's Christoph Waltz, right?
Yeah.
Who this was his first kind of breakout film in Hollywood, anyway.
Yep.
And he's amazing in it. You got Eli Roth. Oddly, I didn't even know he was an actor. I thought he just directed stuff.
Yeah, well, I was confused by this because I thought I'd seen him in stuff before, but then when I was doing the research, I've clearly clocked his face from somewhere. But yeah, he's mainly a producer or a director.
He did that Hostel, right?
Yes,
which is about probably the same levels of graphic gore.
He's done. A lot of his stuff seems to be in a background of horror movies.
Michael Fassbender. Oh man, you know what? The best part of this film for me is, apart from Christopher Waltz, apart from him, Michael Fassbender's accent is the most posh British accent. I mean, obviously it goes into German, right? But I just love the way he talks as a regular English.
It just rolls, doesn't it? It just rolls. Well, funnily you should say that before we go into anything else. So one of the facts that I've got is not really a fact, but kind of is. So Fassbender's performance as Lieutenant Hilcox, so Archie Hilcox, is layered with irony. So Fassbender was born in Germany to German and Irish parents, if you didn't already know that, and was raised in Ireland. So now residing in London with fluency in German as his first language, Gaelic as his second, and English as his third, and a mastery of English accents and dialects because he's a really good established actor. He's then playing in this film an Englishman who goes undercover as a German who could speak German fluently but has difficulty hiding his accent, which is just...
He did, but you know what's incredible about that?
Yeah.
Is the fact that you can see that kind of coming because although he's speaking German impeccably, right? I did German at GCSE, right? I can't speak a word. I could maybe tell you, I could do...
Hello.
I could do directions in the street, like links or rechts, left or right. But the way he speaks German is great, but he does it with kind of this English accent almost, you know what I mean? He's not giving it the full meat of a German accent, right? And that's how he's found out in the movie.
There's the bit in there where he's... The German officer who I had to take his name down because again this is a guy I thought I'd seen in other stuff, but apparently he's not in anything that I've seen. August Deal, who plays Major Hellstrom, who's the guy that outs him in the bar.
Yeah.
Who's that bar scene is fantastic. On a side note, that scene is around 25 minutes long in total.
It feels like this podcast has been 25 minutes long already.
11 actually. It's apparently 25 minutes long, and it's the longest single scene in this movie. And apparently a lot of people find it very difficult to follow, not because there's anything particularly hard about the scene. It's just the fact that all the rest of the scenes are very short, snappy, quick action scenes, and then there's one scene that's sort of, it takes you from about 40 minutes into film to no, I don't even know, an hour and 40 minutes or something like that. It takes you a good section to sort of like the final act of the film.
It's a long scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where I was going with that, though, is that Hellstrom's character basically turns around, doesn't he, to the other two, the German-born bastards. And he's like, oh, Mr. Frankfurt and Mr. Is it Munich or something like that? And he's like, Mr. I don't know where or something like that. I just the dialogue again, because it's we mentioned this on the Pulp Fiction episode. The dialogue in a Tarantino film is just another level. It's brilliant.
It is amazing, yeah.
It hinges on it.
We didn't really give any context to that scene at all, but sorry for just diving in and rambling. We like the film, so...
Yes. Yeah, they're in a bar, basically, trying to get some information.
Undercover. These people are actually undercover. They're English soldiers, right? And they're posing as Germans.
Yeah. Yeah, there's your context. I mean, if you haven't seen this film by now, and you're listening to this particular episode of the podcast, then...
Mrs. Beard had never seen it. I made her watch it. I didn't make her watch it like at gunpoint or anything. Guns pointed at her testicles, like in that scene. Not that she has testicles.
Nice callback there. Yeah, it's a bit interesting to say that she's got testicles. But
she enjoyed it, which was a surprise to me. She normally has an attention span of about 90 minutes, so it's double that.
Well, I was planning to watch this. I normally watch these. We pick a film quite late on a weekend, and then we try and cram it in before us recording. That's usually on a Tuesday. Slowly giving people information. They'll track us down. You know that guy that was drilling through the wall last week?
I hope nobody finds where this is. It's like the Pack Cave.
I mentioned it to my partner Abby, and she turned around and went, "Oh yeah, let's stick it on." It was like 5:00 in the afternoon or 5:30 after work, and she wanted to watch. She loves the film, so but then she sort of fizzled out in it and sigh. There is actually, we was mentioning there about different languages spoken in this film. So one of my other facts, my easily found facts, is that roughly only 30% of this film is spoken in English. The language which dominates the film is either French or German, with a little Italian, very tiny Italian at the end. It's hilarious.
Wait, see if I can do it. Arriverderci. That's Brad Pitt doing it.
It's so bad. Yeah, just for context, for some reason, if you... Look, we're not spoiling the film. It's been out a long time. Go watch it. But Brad Pitt's character has got this very southern... It's from like the Rockies, isn't he? He mentions that he's travelled down from the Rockies.
He says that he's part Apache, right? So he's part Native American.
Yeah, and he basically is trying to pretend to be an Italian. And yeah, it's got like the most southern drawl to it.
The funny part about that is that he says he's the best at doing an Italian accent.
Yeah.
And the other two guys are worse, but they're actually... they're still bad.
I don't know if it's accents or just being able to speak the lingo, like the depreciating knowledge of Italian.
It's funny, it's two polar opposites. Like on the one hand, you've got Brad Pitt who doesn't try, and he's just an American saying an Italian word, right? And then you've got the other guys who are
really
like laying it on.
can't.
It's like the stereotype. They're like, what's the guy called? Do you remember his character's name? And they're saying it in the ballroom or whatever, in the cinema, sorry.
No, I can't.
But he's giving it like the A-O, and Christoph Waltz, he knows, right, that they're fake.
Yeah.
And he says, come on, let me hear the music of the Italian accent.
Just to add to all those accents. So yeah, this is, if you haven't guessed already from any films that you've ever seen in your entire life from the Western Hemisphere, is it highly unusual for a Hollywood production to have that level of subtitles. And in some cases, I did like it. We're just talking general stuff here. So
we'll get to the food in a second.
We'll get to the food scene, which is a very iconic food scene that I'm looking forward to talking about. But the scene with Daniel Bruhl playing Frederick Zoller when he notices Shosanna or Emmanuel, depending on what name you want to go with.
Shoshana.
Yeah, she's sat in the bar, just minding her own business, and he's obviously infatuated with her and doesn't understand why she doesn't seem to acknowledge him at all. When he starts talking in German, as his reference, this is how good I think Tarantino is, and I don't know how many people pick up on it or not, but at the very beginning of the film, when she's under the floorboards, she doesn't know English, so the whole family doesn't know that Christoph Waltz, Hans Landa, is above them, planning to shoot them all, basically.
Yeah.
She can only speak French. She doesn't know any German. So when he starts talking to his fans in German, the subtitles disappear because you have subtitles in that scene for when they're speaking French to each other. This is the sort of like the movie obsessive part of me that's just like those little things that I don't know how many people notice. I'm sure lots of people do.
Yeah,
but
it's a good Easter
I just
egg,
loved
though.
it. I thought it was a really, really clever, and it also links back to that first scene where subtitles disappear and reappear depending on what people can understand. It makes you, as the audience member, if you're not fluent in all these languages, as confused as the character is. So I really enjoyed that. Is there else that you want to talk about? I mean, Daniel Bruhl, he was in Burnt last episode.
I feel like this kind of makes us look ultra professional, and I feel like from every previous week there has been a link to the following week, but it's just coincidence.
You say that like it's coincidence, but maybe I did plan it slightly.
Should I have just said that it wasn't coincidence? It's a well-oiled machine down here, like thematic things going on.
It usually derives from we do one episode. I mean, last episode, obviously we got chosen for us, but then after that, we normally, we disappear for a bit. We don't talk for about 3 days, and I just pop up in his messages, just going, so what film are we doing? And it's literally like the day before.
Slides into my DMs.
Yeah, but to be fair, the reason I did this was the Daniel Bruhl link. He's great in this.
Sorry, I'm laughing. I flashbacks to Conor McGregor. There was no check. Your wife's in me DMs. It's red panty night. So anyway, Daniel Bruhl is great in this, and it shows his range. To come back to the professional stuff, because in the previous week we talked about Burnt, where he's a supporting character, and he's a very different character. In this, he plays a dude that's full of his own self-importance, a guy, to give you a little bit of context, called Freddy Zoller, who is a fiction. I'm assuming it's fictional, but it's probably based upon some. It's kind of like an enemy at the gates thing. He's like a sharpshooter, and he killed 150 Germans by himself in a clock tower.
British and Americans, you mean?
Oh yeah, sorry, Americans. Yeah, Allied forces from a clock tower, and so they're making a movie about his life. And because of that, he has like a sense of self-importance because everyone recognized him. And I actually did make a little mental note. I thought, you know what, when Freddie Zoller's in that bar and everyone's like, let me get a picture with you. Well, they don't, because photographs don't exist. Oh, they do, but in primitive form. But, everyone wants to talk to him. I thought, you know what, it's a little bit like when I got... No, I'm joking. But he's recognized by quite a lot of people in that little bar in the first scene, or whatever it is, restaurant, cafe.
Well, it just tease him up, doesn't it? But obviously she despises him because he's a Nazi, like, plain and simple, because of what happened to her family beforehand and stuff. The only bit that you do kind of... It's difficult because you don't want to say you feel sorry for any Nazi, but the only bit is obviously when he's watching his film back that Goebbels obviously made. It's called like A Nation's Pride, which is obviously like a propaganda film, obviously about him, and he stars himself doing it as well. Which, sidebar as well, Eli Roth and his brother asked Quentin if they could direct that film within the film, and his brother only does like a few directorial things, so it was kind of like a big deal for his brother, and he was like, yeah, sure, do whatever the hell you want, basically, and they did it, and they said that it was so good that it went from 1 day's worth of shooting with Daniel Bruhl to like 3 days worth of shooting. So there's like a full mini 5-minute film of Daniel Bruhl being this like German war hero sniper guy, but it was purposely filmed so that it wasn't sequential and you wouldn't be able to watch it as it, like, the way that you see it in the film is the way that it was filmed so none of it really makes any sense, but there is 5 minutes of like solid. I
mean, really, how much of a movie could they make out of a guy shooting people from a crow's nest?
Yeah, I mean, that's
just Call of Duty, right? Basically, and come on. But
do pretty well these days, to be fair, wouldn't it?
Probably. They probably get like 7 sequels out of it. But yeah, Goebbels loves it.
And the sympathetic thing that I was sort of getting at is that Bruhl doesn't. His character's sort of like squirming during every sort of scene where he shoots people, because clearly he liked the fame and everything that's come from it, and he's done his duty and like all that kind of stuff. But it does kind of paint him slightly sympathetic at the end, and obviously he goes to go see his girl in his head, doesn't he? He thinks he's going to go see this woman that, she let him have the thing there.
I get what you're saying, because you get the feeling that he's seen all this film of himself, because he plays himself in the film, which, by the way, would never happen.
No.
But like, yeah, I think the gravity of you seeing all these dead bodies, it's like a flipping Rambo movie. There's so many dead bodies, and I think the gravity that hits him, and you think, oh, I mean, he's turning a corner here. Then he goes up to see Shoshana, right, who he's obsessed with, and she's like trying to politely say, "Look, mate, I'm about to."
No means no.
Yeah, well, we shouldn't say she's literally about to burn the place down. Yep. Spoiler alert. But she's like, look, mate, come on. I know you're famous, but I've said no about, 15 times. What you should have done at that point is say, okay, sorry. But no, he's like, look, you don't say no to me. Like, he's full of his own. Yeah, I don't get it. But
yeah, you go from like, it's minuscule levels of sympathy to, oh, what a dick again. And then, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, look, we've already sort of mentioned it there, but that scene, just in terms of talking about this film before we get to the food part, I've tried finding out what the idea was behind Tarantino basically offing his protagonist, like his main character, and like, because you think her being the Jewish survivor and like getting her own back, I mean, she kind of does posthumously as the freakishly. Posthumously. Look, hey, I'll say it as I see it. But she kind of gets her revenge in the sense of being like the giant projector that is like burning and you can see a face in the smoke, which kind of gave me flashbacks to Zordon from the Power Rangers.
But yeah, what's with the maniacal laugh as well? Like she's But I mean, I thought, you know what would be really embarrassing is if you did that maniacal laugh and this whole like projector screen going up in flames and burning the theatre down didn't work. It'd just be her laughing like some kind of deranged lunatic.
To be honest, I don't know if you ever picked up on this, because obviously her plan is to film that little section and sort of fuck over Hitler and everyone that's in the, like, kill them basically, and obviously show that as the last thing that they see.
Do we mention that? I mean, again, a little kind of like a 30 seconds of context. At the end of the film, Shoshana, who's at the beginning of the film, was almost killed by Hans Lander and all his Nazi goons. She's escaped, right? But she owns a cinema at the end, and what happens is this movie we're talking about, this crackshot sniper is in. They have a premiere. All the big shot Nazis are there. Goebbels, Hitler, probably Heinrich, and a few others. I don't know. She's gonna lock him in and burn the joint down. And it just so you know what's going on.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna say, like, I'm sort of saying it like I'm expecting people to. I mean, I would hope if you're listening to this, you have. But,
to get the most out of this podcast, if anything from it, you should probably have seen the film beforehand.
Yeah, we're not holding anything back on this one, are we? Really? But yeah, I got vibes of like Zordon from the Power Rangers when that was going on, which was a bit weird. If anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, the 90s, the original Power Rangers. Big grey face in a plastic tube.
Yeah, that was weird.
Never really made much sense. But yeah, I always thought, going back to the film, that little section that she does, and I don't know whether this is just me with something in mind, but it would have pissed the Nazis off.
Would have.
Jesus Christ, this isn't a grammar podcast.
I'm in one of those moods. Go on. It would have pissed the Nazis off, yeah.
If I thought that they were teeing it up, like, the first time I watched it, I've seen this before, but the first time I watched it, I thought it was teeing it up that her and Marcel were going to do a porno, because he's the projectionist in the cinema is a black guy, and that would have they don't like Jewish people and they don't like black people, so I thought that that's what it was kind of teeing up. And with Tarantino's.
Yeah, you're definitely. I didn't see any kind of sexual subtext there at all. So yeah, it's definitely your deviant mind. I'm just going to confirm it right there. Gold stamp that.
Oh no. Well, okay, fair enough. But I was just seeing if anyone else got that vibe from the first watch initially, but apparently not.
No, definitely not. Let's move swiftly on.
So anyway, speaking of porn, okay. So some other random facts for you. Just before we move on.
God, how many are there?
You were begging for facts.
I feel like you can't improve on the last few, but go on.
Simon Pegg was originally set to play Lieutenant Archie Hickox, or Hickox.
Which one was that? I don't remember.
So Fassbender. So it was meant to be Simon Pegg.
That would be no. Fassbender's such a stud too.
Well,
I love Michael
to be honest,
Fassbender.
Of all the things, I mean, it was a Spielberg film that he pulled out for, but of all the ones he did pull out for, he was forced to pull out of the project for scheduling conflicts with The Adventures of Tintin, The Secret of the Unicorn.
Oh, you made the right call there, yeah. Tintin over this. Good Lord, I haven't even seen that. I don't even like the cartoon Tintin.
Also, Fassbender. A lot of my facts are Fassbender because I was just he's an enigma in this film. He's brilliant.
And you were a massive nerd, and he plays Magneto.
Well, that as well.
Yeah, I thought so.
At his audition in Berlin, Fassbender inquired about playing Colonel Hans Lander, to which Tarantino replied, "Look, man, any guy that gets cast as Heathcliff is not fucking German enough to play my Lander, all right?"
Did he say it like that too? Or was he? You reckon he was smiling at the time? Or
apparently that was verbatim. So God knows.
I can imagine doing that too. But no, I mean, I think that's right. I couldn't really see Fassbender as because Hans Lander's got that kind of almost kind of weird. He's trying to pretend like he's your friend kind of thing. When he does the bingo line, that's a bingo. Yeah. That, and it's like, no, you don't. No, you just say bingo. And he's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, no, I don't think Fassbender could have done that. Plus, man, he gave the world that amazing, there's a special place in hell reserved for people who waste good scotch on boy. Since I may be rapping on the door momentarily, he drinks his scotch. That was. I almost felt like he was in the room. Jesus, that was.
Hang on. Bravo! There's someone just chucking roses from side.
I keep thinking I want to give
You said last week
a crack, man. But maybe I find my level like Brookside or something. They don't even make that anymore. I'm talking about Hollyoaks.
Emmerdale, get yourself on Emmerdale.
I could be a dingle, man. Look at me. I'm hairy enough. Anyway, let's move on.
Jesus. Right. Is there anything else in terms of... I mean, we mentioned Pitt's accent, but the one thing that made me absolutely, bolt over was dee-stroyed, where he really... he really goes for it, doesn't he? I've just put accent. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, man, that's part of... It's just such a good film. It's not supposed to be funny. You look at the subject matter, right? It's not funny.
Yes, no, it's not.
But it's fucking hilarious from start to finish because I don't know how Brad Pitt played that with a straight face. I would have just cracked up at every scene.
Well, it's a big speech, the first introduction of him is a big speech.
Yeah.
Which, my final fact before we move off, so after he did that big speech, as with any actor, allegedly in most of Tarantino's films from the early 2000s to this film, anyone that was on it had to then turn and face the camera at the very end of that scene and go, "Hello, Sally," which was referring to Sally Menke, who was the film's editor. So apparently this practice was done on all of Tarantino's films from Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2, Death Proof, and then this film. And this was the last time that ever happened because she, obviously, I would say obviously, but unfortunately she passed away. So when they got an Academy Award nomination, they thanked her for best editing by mentioning that little anecdote.
All right. Was that like a filmmaking device? So was that they got to turn to kind of sync the scenes up or something?
It doesn't really say whether it was that
Sounds
or
like
whether
that.
it was just a bit of fun, just to say it. But can you imagine, for example, Brad Pitt doing that entire scene and then just turning to the camera and just? I mean, he'll have probably said it in the accent as well, knowing him.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't break character, would you? I mean, I don't think I get people get a lot of grief, don't they, for method actors for staying in character. But it's daft to come out of it because if you're speaking in an accent which is not your own, you don't just kind of suddenly switch that off, do you? And then get back into it. So, but yeah, he destroyed. Yeah, he gives it full. He goes full ham on that thing.
He does. Have you got anything else you want to mention, or shall we go into the scene?
Well, I don't know. Is there much to come after the scene? Or we just got the one scene, just a strudel?
Well, I mean, we've got the one scene. I mean, you're before this podcast was vehemently trying to tell me that milk is a meal. So if you want to
milk
talk
is
about
a goddamn
milk
meal, man. If you said to me right now, you're going to consume one thing for the rest of your life, and it will maintain your health, I would probably choose whole milk. Think about it: fat, carbs, protein, lots of calcium, and he's getting it fresh from some, moo cows out in the
somewhat. Sorry,
moo cows out in the backyard. It's probably raw milk. There was a big thing about that.
Yeah. So just in context to that, so we're talking about. I mean, milk is prevalent through the film, and it does pop up again in the scene we're about to talk about in depth in a second.
All right. Well, maybe we could tangentially discuss milk as part of that scene.
But you're talking about the farmer at the beginning.
Yeah, the farmer. I forget the actor's name. I did actually know it for some reason, but I've totally... It's a French name because he's French.
Well, using the powers that be, the power of the internet, I can find out.
He looks a little bit like a sad Lieb Schreiber to me.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. hang on.
You got to tell me, so it'll remind
So
me.
he plays Therese
Yeah.
Perrier Lepardite, and it's Dennis Menochet.
That was it, yeah. Minochet.
Menochet.
Yeah.
And with that, shall we move on to the strudel scene?
Yeah. Fucking love strudel, by the way. Sorry, I interrupted you then.
It's just me being a little bit German.
Oh, yeah, I want to hear it now.
Fantastic. It was in reference to your ja from before.
You know when I did that GCSE German, one of the assessments, real quick, was you had to do like a tape where you recorded yourself.
I did that as well.
Actually, on a tape too. Like, what the heck? That shows how old we are. And I got like a really good. I didn't forget what grade, but I got a good grade, and the teacher specifically said fantastic accent.
Yeah, I got something similar.
It used to piss me off when people be like, "Ich bin."
Ich bin
Steve or whatever. It's like, ich bin.
Yeah, you've got to get that sort of flowing, haven't you? Like, would we have got caught in the bar? Who knows?
Oh yeah, I mean, we'd have been sussed.
Two Yorkshire blokes doing it.
Yeah, but we'd have been
We'd have been shot like 2 minutes into that card game.
drinking shot glasses of gravy. Yeah,
but as you said, I mean, I'm a bit of a finicky food person, which doesn't help when we're doing movie food stuff. I've got my hands on my hips for some reason. No one can see this, but I'm leaning in. I've got my hands on my hips. See, this is all for beard. It's just to add something to the pod. I've never had a strudel before. I don't really like apples.
What?
So I'm not an apple pie guy or berries or whatever you have in strudels. I was going to get one for this, and this would have been my first ever taste of a strudel live on podcast. But yeah, all of them you have to like cook beforehand, and it wasn't happening. What we may do, I'm springing it on beard now. What we may do in the future is we might get some of the foods that we didn't get on the episodes that we've done, and we'll have a bit of a food off.
or we're just trying to eat them.
You what?
Just trying to eat them.
We'll eat them and we'll sort of debate which is the number one
like that idea.
cinematic food. Look, we've got to find things to plug gaps because we're going to run out. Of
I just said it was a good idea, and yeah, man, strudel is my. You got to resist the temptation to go full Arnold, which I do quite often.
Creme?
Oh, well, yeah, you got to have a bit of cream with it. I'd probably have some ice cream.
Yeah, well, yeah, that sounds pretty good actually. To be honest, saying that I've never had it and that I'm not really into it or anything like that for what's in it, etc. The scene itself, just before we go into what happens and the context behind it and the hidden meanings and all that kind of crap that we try and spin a yarn from on this podcast, the actual shot of the strudel, the couple of times you see it, the dollop of cream when it goes on, all the little sort of like focused in, very Tarantino-esque shots. It looks really fucking delicious. It looks really good.
Well, it's fucking pastry, man. Like, what would not be good about it?
And it's in like a fine dining French establishment.
Yeah, but not one of those shit ones like Bradley Cooper runs. This is a good one, you know?
It's Nazi occupied, but it's a good one.
Yeah, apart from that, I mean, the food just looks good, you know?
But yeah, I would definitely eat that one. I think it's just the thing that gets me is the fork and then where it's very daintily pushing the cream on.
Yeah, it pissed me off a bit though. Like, I'd have just stuck my hand clean in there like a fucking bear, just palmed it straight in my face.
Saying that, it must have pissed you off when he dumps his cigarette into an unfinished piece of strudel.
Yeah, well, smoking just pissed me off in general. So those two things together.
So, do you have anything you want to talk about in this scene? Do you want to explain the scene? You explain the scene. This is your forte, after all.
Oh, I kind of forget like the actual specifics. But basically, they're in a little. Is it a cafe, like coffee shop? No, it's more like a restaurant.
She's kind of been abducted, but not.
Right. Yeah, I will do it because you're going to make Ashley.
Yeah, go for it.
Right. So Shoshana, who's like she's the heroine of the film, like the hero of the film. Who was almost killed at the beginning by Christoph Waltz when he did his little Nazi raid, and he was, going through a French person's house to find the Jews harbored under the floorboards. She gets out that years later. She's doing the cinema work. She owns the cinema, and it turns out because this Freddie Zola bloke is constantly pestering her, he says, "Look, Goebbels, we can have the premiere at this cinema because although it's not as big as the Ritz or whatever they're going to use, it sounds
it's more exclusive.
More exclusive.
Yeah.
That's the way I was going to try and do that in German, but I don't know the German for it. So anyway, she gets kind of invited to this little mini soiree thing with Goebbels, right? But then Christoph Waltz, he's called, quote, the Jew hunter, right, in the film.
Yeah.
He turns up. obviously she's aged, so he doesn't. Well, I mean, the last time he saw her, she was
Never,
running away.
he only saw the back of her head, which
Yeah.
is part of this, I think, as well.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, you probably wouldn't idea because she was like 8 or something at the time, right? Or I don't know. Anyway,
We're only 4 years ago. She would have been 8.
four? All right, okay, whatever. Anyway, he doesn't know who she is, right? But she knows who he is.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of sat there. She doesn't want to run the film, right? But obviously, she knows about the authority.
She didn't want to be there.
No, yeah, but she knows that if she can't say no, essentially. If Adolf and his
Comply or die.
yeah. You just want to say comply or die for
It
some
just
reason?
sounded cool in my head. Trying to say carry on.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the scene, and as part of that scene, it's another kind of menacing performance by Christoph Waltz, right? As he kind of orders this Strudel to make out like he's a nice bloke. Meanwhile, intimidating her and letting her know that for some reason the her mate who's black, it's a black man.
Yeah, Marcel. Yep.
He cannot. He will not be allowed to operate the projector for some reason. She has to do it, even though she's not a projectionist.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's Nazi logic for you, I suppose.
Well, he even says, doesn't he, that even if he's the most proficient person at the job or whatever, we still don't want him doing it or whatever. Yeah. But that's, that,
Fucking Nazis.
And scene.
Yeah, that's where the scene ends.
And as mentioned momentarily, he then ends that scene by dumping a cigarette in it, and then she has a bit of a big cry, which I think will give a lot away if she literally bursts into tears as soon as he leaves the room.
He's gone by then. He's long gone.
As long as there's no Nazis like lurking, but obviously
if that were me, I'd have been like, fucking fishing the cigarette out like 'cause he's not finished his strudel.
Well, this is where we go into some online debate around this scene and whether he did or didn't know something up. Now,
I think he did, from what I got.
There's a bit, because at the very end of this film, without giving away the entire ending, he doesn't like being given the nickname of the Jew hunter. He sees himself as a detective. He's good at his job. He's a detective. That in his head, as a Nazi sort of SS Jew hunter, that he just sees himself as a detective. He thinks he's excellent at his job, and he does lots of. It's like when we were talking about the Italian bit earlier, there's lots of subtle sort of like he knows and he pulls threads to sort of draw people out. It's very clever. In this scene, there's a few things that sort of have triggered that as the online debate. So the first one, the one we were just mentioning from another scene that comes back to this, the glass of milk.
Yeah.
He orders her a glass of milk. He also tells her, just randomly, for no particular reason, which it kind of falls in with logic of the time, that if you've been questioned by a high-ranking like Nazi officer, you probably are going to be nervous, especially if you're a French person in occupied France. But he picks up on her anxiety. Her anxiety is obviously not just because of what I've just mentioned, but it's because he killed her entire family and she knows who he is.
Yeah.
So he then, after that turning point, he does start going down almost the detective route. Like the very end of this scene, he goes, I did have something else. And he leaves her. And he's clearly, from looking into this scene more, it feels like he's trying to draw something out. He doesn't know it's her. And he doesn't know that she's anyone significant. But this is just his job. Everyone that he speaks to tries to trip him up. Because, and after thinking about it, he does. Like if you go through that scene, like beat for beat, and then the other sort of twisted idea behind this Strudel scene, which is probably partially Tarantino's doing, is the choice of food that he picks is symbolic because, again, it's almost like another psychological game that he's playing with her, because obviously milk is, not milk, cream is not kosher. It's not something that they can sort of have. But also the lard, the fat, the pork lard that would have been traditionally used at the time to make the strudel wouldn't be allowed to be eaten if you were Jewish, by Jewish dietary laws. So he's picked that, and then when she tries to eat the strudel before the cream, he's then stopping, and obviously in that scene you see her cut it up, put everything on the fork and eat it. So there is that level of detail that, he doesn't necessarily know that that's the girl that got away, but he's trying to out whether she might be Jewish or not, just because he's doing...
Here endeth the film fellow's dissertation. That was a deep dive about fucking strudel, man. Come on. Yeah, probably. I'll give you a yeah. Like, bing. You're probably right.
Hey, this is the big food scene, we've got to talk about what that's kind of like the internet's sort of take on that scene.
Totally, I can see it. Yeah, but I don't. I did. It wasn't like a major theme. I was just thinking about Strudel the whole time.
Strudel. Yeah, it's like Homer.
Yeah.
Other things that I took away from it that's not to do with like that in-depth sort of film essay that I just gave. The whole politeness. He's so sinister and gives such a sinister, villainous sort of portrayal all the way through the film because of just how fucking polite he is all the way through.
Yeah. No,
like,
that's I get the feeling that's probably what won him the part because it's not your traditional villain. He's not just a straight, I'm a bad bloke.
Maniacally laughing, and he does one part during the Italian bit, but other than that,
he does a lot of kind of maniacal shit. But like, yeah, he kind of comes across as almost kind of superficially friendly, right? And he'll see, he's very when in the opening scene. When he goes into Monsieur L'Appetit's little shack, he's like, "May I smoke my pipe?" Can we speak English? Yeah. He could well just. He's success, right? He's wearing his big daft trench coat. He could just be like, "Look, I'm smoking my pipe, bitch." And by the way, he does whip out the most ludicrous pipe I've ever seen in my life. It's like the kind of thing he would. It's like the Horn of Gondor. That shit, man. You see the size of it, man.
It looks like a toilet seat.
Yeah, it does a little bit, yeah. Like a big gold one.
I actually thought when I first watched this, because by that point that they're under the floorboards, that the smoking was to try and make someone cough. Like I thought he was maybe like smoking them out cleverly, which it could still be. Like I've just said, the whole breakdown of the whole strudel thing, it could be in part that he's trying to do that before the...
What's he smoking? Dry ice? If you smoke, it's going to go upwards, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just blowing it.
He's going to blow it downwards.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be blowing the smoke downwards, would he? It's just that initial, when you first watch a film and you try to figure out what the hell's going on the first time, which was like, probably 7 years ago for me or whatever when I watched this film.
I watched it when it came out.
Did you?
Straight away, yeah. Weirdly, I don't know why. I'm not a massive Tarantino fan.
I don't think I had the Tarantino, like, not bug, but like I just didn't, like, there was a point... Might have been actually when we first like met each other around that time when I was like got my first job and all that kind of stuff that I went down that route of just watching stuff on like Netflix and stuff, and I think I went down the route of watching like Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, this.
I mean, I love a lot of Tarantino movies. I would never describe myself as a Tarantino fan. I wouldn't get, like, for example, what did we just mention? The one before, the one I said was terrible. Hateful Eight.
Yeah, Hateful Eight.
That was fucking... I say it's a bad film because he's a great filmmaker. But
yeah, I found it a bit dull compared to the others. And
you always know that they're going to be really good films driven by great dialogue. So if you're into films, then you're going to like them. But I'm not like... I don't walk around with a Quentin Tarantino t-shirt on and shit. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes. You mentioned his entrance as well in this scene, because obviously she's talking to Goebbels and Zola beforehand. How epically badass and terrifying. I mean, it's not terrifying in the conventional sense that I wasn't scared, but giving the fear of Shosanna like being sat there and someone coming behind her, and then that pulsating sort of like, I don't even know what it is, like it's a panicky, pulsating sort of drumbeat kind of thing when he just appears, and it's like all epic. It gets louder and it crescendos and this crazy loudness, and then it flashbacks to her running away and hearing him say, did he say Auf Wiedersehen? Or no?
Au revoir.
Au revoir, yeah. Au revoir, and sort of...
Like Eric Cantona.
Apparently, that bit, some people were confused by him letting her go. There was like, this film is like 2.5 hours, 2 hours 40 long or whatever. The original is obviously, because it's Tarantino, it was like 3.5 hours long that they had to like edit down.
Shit.
There was a full thing about him explaining why he lets her go after that, and that he basically doesn't think she'll survive the night, like by getting out. So, and then obviously it jumps forward to her on in the cinema and all that kind of stuff. So that flashback, I was looking up, that stuff to do with the film today, and yeah, that is something that people were confused about. But Tarantino said, yeah, we had a whole bit explaining why he doesn't like shoot her, why he doesn't try and go after her.
A couple of things on that. First, really always pisses me off in films when people are trying to run away from somebody and they run
zigzag, man.
They run in a straight line. I've never seen anyone zigzag in a movie. Is Apocalypto. Remember that when he's got they don't have a gun, but they're like throwing spears.
Yeah.
And the guy's he's sussed it, right? Because he's Jaguar Paw is the character. Man, there's no food in that film, right? because we can't really do it. But anyway, yeah, I think, why would you run a dude's... He's only got like a little handgun. He's going to have to be a crack shot to hit it from that distance anyway.
I don't think he'd reach that distance either. That was the bit that was getting me, and then obviously he doesn't do it in the end.
Anyway, what I was going to say is, I kind of an allusion to the fact that he's not really... It's in the end. I'm spoiling it. He's not really... He's ultra advanced in the ranks of whatever he does for the reprehensible National Socialist Party of Germany. He's not really a Nazi, is he? Because at the end... What he wants to be known as the guy that brought in part brought the Nazi party down. Yeah, so I thought it was kind of like that first thing. I'm always thinking like he's letting it go because he's thinking, I've done my job, right? Let's let it go. And then I kind of thought I had that theme kind of running through my head the whole time, thinking, what is he just kind of letting her go because maybe he's taking a bit of a shine to her? And I thought maybe like when he sees her again for the strudel, maybe he does know actually that it's her. And he's kind of like he's for whatever reason doesn't want to kill her, and that's like 1% of some humanity left.
Possibly, like it's hard to. I don't think we'll ever know. I think that the great thing about look, we've picked a podcast to do together about food and cinema scenes. Some of them are going to be daft. Some of them are going to be really short. Some of them are going to be, some of them we're going to have a laugh about. This particular scene.
Still waiting for the short ones. Still waiting for the short ones.
This particular scene is done by a great director. It's a good 5-6 minutes long, and in it can be taken in so many different ways. It's almost like Tarantino tees it up in that sense that he orders the glass of milk. It could be just because it goes really well with Strudel, and because she's a girl and he don't want her to drink alcohol or coffee or whatever, and he's asserting some sort of dominance over her because he's a Nazi.
Just loves milk.
He really does love milk. Or it could be that he does know who she is, or it could be psychological that he doesn't know who she is, but like I was mentioning before, maybe just trying to see, is this girl a Jew? Is this girl I'm just going to hunt everybody that comes in front of me because that's my job? It's so open-ended, and that's what I think makes it such a good scene. Other than the obvious stuff, the obvious shit with this scene is that it's super tense. It's protagonist versus antagonist. There's all that behind it, but the different ways how you've just approached it, how I've sort of researched it, the way that I felt when I watched it, that shows a good director. That's not for the debate, is it? But it's no, obviously not. But that's what I mean. It just shows that there's that.
You can contrast this with Burnt from last week, where there's very little artistic directing going on.
We didn't talk about any of this in that film. It was just, that guy's a dick. That was about it. So,
by the way, on the subject of massive dicks,
God, where's this going?
How good is the bloke that plays Hitler in this? The takeoff is next level. He is so good, man. He's better than the guy in Downfall, I think.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, obviously the downfall, the sort of like meltdown scene of Hitler is iconic. But
it's a bit of a meme. But
yeah, I do think that guy plays it really well. Obviously, side note, we've kind of done with the Strudel scene now, I guess, unless you had all else to say.
No, I wanted to not. I did not want this podcast to sail me by without saying, you know what, the dude, I don't know his name, but the guy that plays Adolf Hitler does a fantastic
Should we find out?
impression of him.
Because I feel like we'd be doing him a disservice, because you can't say that someone is that good and then not.
He's definitely been studying those tapes, man, when he was doing the...
Martin Wuttke.
Yeah,
spelled Wuttke.
Oh, he's German then, yeah?
Yes.
That makes sense, but he was good. The actor was great, not Hitler, obviously. He was not great.
The guy who played one of the things that I looked up earlier, the guy who played Till Schweiger, who played Sergeant Hugo Stiglitz.
Stiglitz.
Yeah, it was just like was a Nazi, but then didn't like it at all, so just killed 13 SS officers or something like that.
Took him down from the inside.
Yeah, he the actor. Being, as we were mentioning before, there's a lot of German actors in this that we've never seen since or before, or obviously in German films and German TV. He had said at the start of his career will never wear a Nazi uniform because he embarrassed him, like obviously as a lot of German people are, until Tarantino turned around and says, in every scene that you've got this, you'll stab Nazis to death wearing the Nazi costume. And he's like, yeah, fine, all right.
And also, here's a big bag of money.
Well, that too, I'm guessing. But
also, I've got a fun fact.
Go.
He played Hercules well, he didn't play Hercules, but Disney's Hercules, he did the voiceover for the German version. He was the part of Hercules.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't. Check you out pulling a fact out
That
of bag.
could be totally made up. You've got no ways of checking it, but no, it's true. I didn't even know there was a German dub of. I hate dubs, man. I watch movies with. I don't like dubs, so if I watch a film that's a foreign movie, I'll watch it with subtitles.
Some more facts about dubs then, here we go. But no, seriously, so Daniel Bruhl, we mentioned last week, you couldn't remember what his nationality was. He's Spanish-German.
Yeah.
So the Spanish dub of this film, for his own character, he did the Spanish dub of himself.
That's cool.
And so did in the German. Obviously, I'm guessing most of the cast that were German did it, but it was one of the facts that I found is that Christopher Waltz did his character's German dub as well.
Makes sense.
Which
Saves
makes
on
sense.
costs.
And Brad Pitt did dee-stroy. He just did his American for his American. Yeah, could have done with subtitles.
I
for
feel
some of
like
that.
they CGI his chin to make it bigger in this movie too. Like, how big is it? I feel like he's sticking his chin out the whole time.
He's also we didn't really mention it's not really food, but I feel like we've had a conversation before about snuff. You know, like the sniffing stuff.
Yeah, he loves his snuff.
Did you mention that your granddad did that? That was either off a podcast or on a podcast.
I think it was off a podcast. But yeah, my granddad loved snuff. He'd be sniffing it all day. Like, oh, you told me to snuff. It could have been anything. Could have been on some Class A for all I know. Oh, does that mean that we have to make the podcast like 18 on? I made a drug reference.
I don't
there
know.
goes that Spotify exclusive deal. Oh,
Hell, with some of the people that have got Spotify exclusive deals, I don't think we're, in any danger.
yeah. I mean, Joe Rogan talks about it all the time, right? All they talk about in that podcast is drugs. Keep talking about psilocybin I've not listened to that many episodes, but maybe like at least 9 talking about all kinds of
You
shit.
burning our bridges to ever be on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah. I don't think that bridge was ever. That's like the bridge to fucking Terabithia, that, mate. That was never available to us.
Look, you've got to have a dream.
I'm taking a lot of advantage this week of the fact that we're allowed to swear. I'm allowed to swear on this podcast.
This is basically your one part of the week where, I mean, unfortunately, if I could get you on a day where you were eating crap, we could eat some more crap that's related to the films that we're watching. But also, you just get to be,
A little bit leery. Yeah. Well, I'm family friendly, right? So I don't often. I mean, I don't swear much like day to day. I mean, maybe I do. I don't know. It's hard to be objective about it, but on this podcast, it's a nice release. Speaking
of nice releases. No, I'm kidding. Not nice releases. But speaking of, I'm trying to think now. Adult content in the sense, not sexual. Before you go there,
Let me out of this room.
We were talking about at the very beginning of this podcast, and I mentioned we'd come back to it, and we never did. And we mentioned this is a revisionist film. Tarantino likes his revisionist stuff. If you've seen, I won't mention what happens, but if you've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it all kind of happily goes along and is quite entertaining and fun and interesting, and spaghetti westerns and Brad Pitt and all that. And in the very end, he changes a key point in American Hollywood history. No, we'll say no more. He also has done it in other films as well, but in this particular film, he obviously changes the whole ending of World War II. Like, obviously, none of this actually happened. Just in case you were listening to this podcast for historical reference, that Hitler didn't burn to death in a French cinema.
Oh, did he?
Well, he might have had one ball. Did he burn in it? Here we go. But what I'm getting at here is Tarantino, a lot of his films are allegedly, and I think he started to allow this now, like he's on board with it. They're all connected. I'm guessing you've heard this as well, yeah? In some capacity.
No, I've not heard this.
Well,
they're just like part of a Tarantino alternate universe.
Well, the burgers, so the Pulp Fiction...
Oh, we talked about that, yeah.
Yeah, so Pulp Fiction's burgers are in other films, which is a very small connection, but it's there. Obviously, you've got then Vincent Vega being related to... I can't forget on which one it is now from Reservoir Dogs, but there's a relation there as well. They're all connected in that way. Apparently, Kill Bill, as the Volume 1 and Volume 2, the reason it's so stupidly hyper-violent is because it's a film set within this universe. So just as these people burned to death watching Zola's movie, Kill Bill is, if one of the Pulp Fiction characters was still alive by the end of that film and wished to go see a film in the early 2000s, they would have, in their universe, gone and seen Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2. So that's set in there. The reason that film is also so hyper-violent, according to this Tarantino verse, as we'll call it, is that this version of history was much more... Obviously, our version of history in World War II was very violent as well, but this is like hyper-violent, sadistic, awful, like...
I think you could argue that most of what the Nazi Party was perpetrating was also that.
Yeah, but I mean, this, and obviously what happens at the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for example, as well. Django Unchained as well, again, is supposed to be a historical film set within the Tarantino universe, even though it's not. Again, super hyper-violent.
Super hyper-violent?
Super hyper-violent.
It's like a Street Fighter game. That's super hyper Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
I'd play that. But yes, because they're so violent, it's created a violent sort of
I get what you're saying.
America in Tarantino's universe.
Because these things existed. It's like a self-perpetuating thing.
Yes,
I get it.
Yes. So that was what I mentioned it right at the beginning of the podcast, and now I'm mentioning it right at the end.
So
did you know about that?
I'm so glad
you
interested?
interested?
I'm so glad you mentioned that a second time.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about strudel for another 10 minutes? Is there any other food that you think were in there? Do you want to class whiskey as a type of food?
Well, I mean, it is...
it's calorific. So
alcohol, right? Alcohol, 7 calories per gram. The fourth macronutrient, as it's often known.
Here he goes.
Well, actually, not very well known, but I'm a little bit sad that we skipped the milk.
We didn't skip the milk. We talked a lot about milk. What else do you want to talk about milk? Come on, look, I'm not having you. I'd slam this table if it wants so... sort of soft
flimsy.
And gentle, but what do you want to talk about milk?
No, I thought we would have made a big deal of that scene, but we probably made as big of a deal as we need to of all the scenes in this film. It was another one. I feel like we got a token mention it, kind of nicked from Babish. We mention him in
everything that we do is nicked by Babish.
It's nicked from Babish. He doesn't nick our stuff, but no, it was a great film, and the strudel looked good. I really want to do I don't know if I could maybe do a giant strudel. I'm not sure how appealing that would be to people. I certainly haven't ever seen anyone eat. I could probably do the most strudel ever eaten. It's not really
go for it. You can get they're quite big. They're like 8 people strudels. The ones that you were from the well, I know it's a half a beard, half a beard. 8 people, 8 normal people, or half of beard. It's probably for one of those. So I'd watch that.
Where do you get these giant strudels? You speak
supermarket, but you have to cook them, which is why I haven't brought a strudel with us. So I'm sorry, listeners, that we're expecting us to...
I've got a giant fucking oven right just out there.
Oh, yeah, good point. Shit.
I meant there's a giant mic. It's like an industrial microwave.
Live on air.
I
say live on air like this is a radio station, but, live from Tuesday, when you listen to this on Friday, you could have listened to Beard cooking a microwave oven strudel.
Yeah. Could have been.
In the corner. But yeah, we will, I think, the idea of anything that we've done where we couldn't get hold of the food, we'll find a day when Beard can eat. And to fill a week, if we're struggling, we'll have a food battle. We could either have just 2 items from 2 different films, or we could get a...
Oh, you mean like it's a battle between 2 foodstuffs, not like between you and me?
I'm not going to bash you to death with a piece of strudel.
Oh, right. I was thinking that you were going to try and eat equal amounts to me or something like that.
Well, that would also kill me. So. No, I'm suggesting more like, the strudel versus gobstoppers or something like that. Although we were not going back there because you nearly lost your teeth. So.
Yeah, that would be neat. That'll be over.
Maybe a Hawaiian burger. We'll have the Jollibee Hawaiian burger standing in. Pulp Fiction versus Inglourious Basterds. We could have the pineapple burger versus the strudel.
Yeah. I get it, I like the idea.
Should we go to the outro then?
Let's go to the outro.
So I just put an awkward silence in there, hoping that I'd make Beard break and just start giggling uncontrollably, but he didn't. He just looked at me like, "What are you doing, you idiot?"
No, I can't. I'm not the kind of man that can be intimidated. Even though there's some weird detective downlighting going on in this room, it's not intentional.
It does feel like where we record this in Beard HQ, there's got a window. It feels like we're kind of in an interrogation room.
From this angle, to me, it does almost
look
like a two-way mirror.
From the other side, it's like a two-way mirror. Yeah, I do feel like at any moment someone's going to just walk into the door and go, right!
Like that scene from True Lies. That's what I always think of True Lies when I think of a two-way mirror. Where they're interrogating Jamie Lee Curtis. If you tell me you've not seen True Lies, I'm going to flip this fucking table, man.
Has it got food in it?
Oh, it does, actually. But I haven't forgotten that we're doing at the very least, Jingle All the Way come Christmas time.
We've got
Which
plenty
point
of
it'll be
Christmas films.
absolutely freezing in here. I'm gonna pull a Bear Grylls and like kill a yak outside and like, skin it, coming in the husk of this yak.
all those yaks in Yorkshire, yeah.
Well,
God, we're
it-
going
don't
off
be
the right
told-
tangent here, aren't we? But
People know that we're in Yorkshire now. Damn.
yeah, because your YouTube channel never gave that away. But yeah, that is episode 8, man. Episode 8, 2 weeks on trot as well. Doing pretty well. On
yeah,
trot.
yeah. It felt like it felt like a bit of a. I think we rambled a bit too much this week, but I cracked myself up doing that Michael Fassbender thing. I'm going to be listening back to that.
I actually did want to. I've got loads of Scotch whiskey at home, but obviously we've both got to drive to get here, and with you not actually eating most of the day, I didn't want to get you too pissed up
mate,
on you. I mean,
was
your
in
Tesla could have probably drove you home.
It could have. We don't want to take that chance. I was in Liverpool the other day and I got absolutely chinned. Like, not actually physically chinned. I just got drunk because Mrs. B was buying me some cocktails. She very rarely buys me anything, and she just kind of put this cocktail menu in front. She's like, "Keep getting stuff." I got this thing called the penicillin, which I mean, it was intense.
It was no good for you then. No.
No. I think they just called it that because it tastes just like it was so pungent. It tasted like medicinal, you know. So yeah, I was pretty drunk. So it'll be a while before I go near alcohol again. I'm not a big drinker.
It's a good job I didn't bring any of my fancy Scotch with me.
Johnny Walker or something.
I haven't got any 33-year-old Scotch that he pulls out, but I think I did have some 20 somewhere.
Big shot.
Yeah, I like my Scotch. Anyway, if you too like Scotch,
This podcast is sponsored by Glen Morangi.
What I was going to say, though, is that if you would like to listen to us elsewhere, or you're sat in the car and for some reason your friend's been a total dick and is just playing this random podcast while you wanting to have a conversation with them, but they've just decided they're going to play this, and you too want to listen to this podcast, because for the life of me, I don't understand why you have to say this at the end of a podcast, but everyone else does, so I am going to do it as well. We are available wherever you get your podcasts from. Your favourite podcast provider may even have us, so go check us out, Movie Mouthfuls Podcast.
How many are there? Podcast providers?
Too many. It's very, very difficult when you're first starting these to get you uploaded to all of them. But we are now on all podcast providers, I do believe. So if you want to subscribe to us, if you want to follow, if you're on Apple Podcasts and want to give us a 5-star review, that's 5, not 4, not 2, not 1.
I'll take a 3 or a 4. Come on, man.
What? Just make us not seem 2.
Well, I mean, I don't want a 2 and I don't want a 1 really, but I mean, I'll take a 3. My life, if you could condense my life into a vote out of 5, a rating out of 5, it would probably be a 3.
Wow. Wow, high bars set there by Beard. Yeah, if you want to give us a review, preferably a 5, ignore him. Apple Podcasts is the place to do that, and that will hopefully push us in front of new people that have never heard of us. I mean, I don't know, everyone seems to have heard of Beard, but no one's heard of me, so...
Still not many people are listening to this podcast. That's not a bad thing, though. I mean, it's good to have, like, cult status.
Yeah, it's exclusive as a podcast. That's how you need to think of it for now. It's an exclusive club. Just like the smaller cinema in this film, hey? Look, callback.
Yeah.
You can find us over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Movie Mouthfuls. You can find myself over on Twitter at TheFilmFella_. You can also find me on YouTube, The Film Fella. Again, I haven't done anything for a while. I will at some point. Beard, won't say it, but just search for Beard Meets Food or Food Meets Beard or meat, food, beard or whatever you want to search for.
Any combination of those 3 words.
You should maybe find him, or you might just find lots of pictures of men with food stuck in the beards on
Could equally
Google.
find that. Yeah. It's possible. I think it just goes to my Wikipedia. I think if you search me, not that I search myself very often, but if you do, I think it comes up like YouTube channel, Wikipedia page.
Look at him breaking down his SEO.
And then, I don't even know I know what it means. I don't spend any time working on it. And then Facebook page, then probably a couple of crap articles from like the Daily Mail talking about some shit that I've eaten.
And then the comments section complaining about how much food he wastes, even though he doesn't because he eats it all. But anyway, if you fancy sending us any questions, if you want to ask him something about that, or preferably you want to ask us something about films and food, then you can email us or you can tweet us. But you can email us at moviemouthfuls@gmail.com. Still waiting for that first email. You know,
emails on man. Just tweet us, man. I'm actively encouraging this. I would love to hear from people.
Yeah, we want to you know,
I just want to make sure that that Jordan's telling me there's like 60 unique listeners, and I'm just thinking it's maybe like he's just got a really large family, all of which are being forced at gunpoint.
No
to
one
watch
that I actually
listen.
know listens to this.
Sorry, my mum doesn't watch my videos either, so I know how you feel.
I cry every time. Anyway, if you want to support us, head over to our Patreon.
No!
Patreon.com/movie mouthfuls. I might just start making that into a sound effect that plays before you actually do it. Yeah, it makes Beard cringe every time. But if you want to support it, look, if someone was to donate just £1, I could have gone and bought that strudel and put it in the oven.
You could have bought strudel anyway.
I could have bought the strudel anyway. Yeah, like I'm being daft. But if you want to support the podcast for any other reason, then you can do, but you don't have to. Big thanks to Lee for all the music, as always, and also happy birthday for, I believe it was yesterday, it might have been today, all my days have blended into one, but happy birthday, Lee.
Oh, Lee, is your birthday?
It probably isn't when he listens to this, or if he ever does listen to this, but...
Probably not. He listens for his little jingles.
Skips for each jingle.
I hope he's rocking out, playing guitar and eating birthday cake.
Yeah. Strudel.
I don't know him, so like I'm just trying. The only things I know about him are that he plays guitar, and it's his birthday, as you've now told me. So
yes. Well, we will be back very soon. If people want to suggest films for us, we've already had one suggestion. He sent a bunch of suggestions actually, but if anyone else wants to get involved, you can do. If not, I'll continue to just drop into Adam's DMs and tell him what film we're watching. But until next time. Remember not to be a fascist, otherwise some bloke will come and bash your head in with a baseball bat.
that was mine, by the way. That was my I came up with that end line.
All right. Jeez, what are you doing? Put that baseball bat down. In a bit.
Peace.